So I was approached to discuss some aspects of Jedi for the Republic. It is a um, Facebook group that was designed with the intent of us being more involved with our community government. One thing I've learned is that the way for us to really impact government is to be involved with our local governments, from city to state and then on. But really, city and state is what gets us to have us be involved in that, is what gets us to have impact on the federal government. And this is Jedi for the Republic is designed for the United States, but that doesn't mean we want to exclude any international. We especially don't want to exclude any international because of the differences that we have in the United States that are not the same internationally. This concept of Jedi for the Republic was born from the Jedi Compass and through government classes that I took in college. The Jedi Compass addresses the Jedi's responsibility as respect of the law. A Jedi knows enough of the law to operate within it. Jedi should respect and do their best to live by the laws of the land they are living in. However, some laws may be flawed and should be amended. When the written law is unjust or in the absence of legal precedents, a Jedi must act in the best interest of others as they see the situation. That's from the Jedi Compass. That is the document that, the guiding document that has been driven by the Jedi community, established and adopted by the majority of the community. So in that regard, we are accepting that responsibility as Jedi to be influential in our government. When we see a flaw in the government, we see a flaw in laws, that we should act to get those laws amended. And the best way for us to do that is to be involved with what is going on in our communities through townhouse meetings, through general conferences, things like that. To point out, 2024 is an election year. So this drives this idea home that we have a responsibility. The right to vote is not just a right, it is a responsibility. Therefore, we should practice it as Jedi, that we go out and vote for who we feel is the most appropriate person to be in place of government, to govern what we want as the people, to rule the government, rule is a bad word, to govern us as a people. And we should never really accept that term rule as the populace of the United States, at the very least. We as the people are the government. And I feel like that has probably been lost to many of us that believe that the government is corrupt, the government has lost its way, we have no power as people. That is pretty far from the truth. What we are doing is accepting our fate and allowing the government to have power that they shouldn't have. So we, as a people, need to understand that we have a responsibility, a role to play in how the government is ran. That being said, in the election years of 2018, 2020, and 22, that was the highest turnout in U.S. elections, where about 2/3 of the voting eligible population turned out. 2/3, 66%. 66% in most cases is a decent number. If it was a grade, you're still failing. Okay, so we are not probably going to ever have 100% of the voting eligible people vote, but we should promote that everyone should get out and vote. Jedi for the Republic is not about taking sides, addressing parties. If you want to advocate for somebody, we're not totally against that. But if we have political discussion, we need to have it in a Jedi manner. Another reason for the Jedi for the Republic being founded was to maintain political discussion away from the regular issues or communication between the Jedi groups, so that if that needs to be addressed, it can come to Jedi for the Republic. We can address it as a political viewpoint and address it there, where it's not convoluting or interfering with standard Jedi discussion. So that was a key point of forming the Jedi, or establishing the Jedi for the Republic, in my mind. I want to make sure we make no mistake. Public participation in government is absolutely crucial. The people that come to power usually come to power because there is no one really going against them. I've learned that when they have caucuses to establish who is running for government, there's oftentimes not enough people to even fill the positions of what the caucus is trying to establish. So if you're there, you're basically being elected to be part of that group, because there's not enough participation with what is going on that more people can be involved, and more insight, more cooperation can be established. So a person shows up, they get elected to be in that position, and then suddenly they've got some power, they keep moving, they get some influence, they keep going on, and they become what we call the professional politician. And that's all they do, is be a politician. And they lose sight, as a professional politician, most times we lose sight of what we were trying to achieve by seeking office in the first place. I believe that the government was set up so that a person could run for government that has no understanding of government, but to benefit their principle, their agenda. So like the farmer could go to run for government, get office, and help the farmers. The teacher could run for office to help the teachers. That was the guiding principle of the formation of the government, that anyone could run for government. And now it really is that if you don't have a name, it's really hard for you to seek any kind of office. So you kind of have to start at the very bottom and work your way up, which is normal in any job situation. But a lot of times with that moving up in progress, you can lose sight of what you're trying to achieve by running for office in the first place. So our opinion in being involved with the government in locally with town hall meetings or those centralized meetings, even like school board meetings, directors meetings, things like that, that we can be involved in, sit in, listen to what's going on, ask our questions, present our ideas for others to consider and make motions. We are the government. We are the government as the people. We are the government, but we let politicians be in charge, and that's where we are failing as people. And we are failing as Jedi if we are not being involved and encouraging others to be involved. That is that part of it. So every government, local government is different. Every level of government is slightly different. Most states do not allow themselves to become over budgeted. That means they cannot have a debt when they go into the next fiscal year. Obviously, the federal government doesn't follow that same guideline, even though they have it established that they should not continue with anything until they establish their budget. To go into the budget, the major problem with the federal government budget is they are essentially passing the same budget that they had 30 years ago as the next year's budget. Obviously, we can't account for everything, all the growth, all the distributions. That's why when you see that we are nearly $40 trillion in debt, that seems huge. But that number probably is not accurate, nearly as accurate as it should be. If our government could finalize an actual budget, that it would probably turn out that we are not nearly as bad off as it appears that we are. But again, they have other matters that attend to, whatever, and so they just pass that budget on as the new fiscal budget, and that's how they proceed. So most states can't operate that way. We as people can't operate that way, and we as people should hold the government responsible that they can't operate that way. But we have to be involved in order for that change to happen. So we've got to get involved, be involved, encourage others to be involved, to help that matter go along. I did note the New Hampshire the New Hampshire Municipal Association identified 16 things that every citizen should know about a town hall meeting. Town hall meetings usually happen twice a month. They are open to the public. They are online a lot, so you can even just watch online, and you can sign up, in most cases, to voice your opinion. If you have a question, if you need to address a situation, you can sign up to have that heard, even if you're watching through online. So that is a key thing. And the things that I like to see in those town hall meetings and like to address is I go out and I like to find dangerous intersections. That was one of the first things that came to the first town hall meeting that I attended. As this older woman brought up this intersection that was very difficult to navigate because there was no lights. It was on a hill. It was dangerous, and she brought it to the council's attention, and within a week they were already putting up lights in this intersection. They had already identified, hey, you know what, this is a dangerous intersection. We've had multiple accidents here before. We need to address this because the public has addressed it. We need to address it and get that light put in. So that's one of the things that you can address. If you see dangerous school zones, you can address those situations. And the biggest thing that we have to know is that our voice is being presented and being heard in these meetings. That is the goal that we are trying to achieve, is having our voice heard, so that these changes can take effect. Going back to the Jedi Compass, if we see that it is unjust or not well written, that the only way that those changes are going to happen, one, we can be defiant.
Where was I at? You were talking about being defiant when we talk
Oh,
about the
be defiant. Yes. Okay. So we can rebel against our government. We can riot against our government. We can hold rallies against the government, or we can be involved and have our voices heard. And as Jedi, obviously, or it should be obvious that that is the approach we should be making, is instead of being defiant and challenging the government, we should be part of the change in action and not a reactive state of these um these riots or whatever case they, whatever, however it's presented, that we need to be involved in meetings. That's our Jedi way, is to negotiate and rationalize and present ideas and offer change in that sense. So that is the approach that we should be making. And I don't think that that is just the U.S. government. I think that is internationally as well, with what you can do. Now, obviously, some governments are less likely to listen to you than others. But if you have, if you are able to take the right approach, do what is necessary to incite change, that is what the goal should be, is to bring about the change in a peaceful manner, as opposed to any type of riotous manner. So the 16 lessons, or the 16 things that every citizen should know. One is every voter is a legislator. Okay. Those quaint sayings about town government being pure democracy are true. State law refers to the town meeting as a legislative body. Okay. You are a legislator. You are in charge of the meeting, in a sense. So, you presenting your voice, you're like your representative on your hill that's making those laws and taking those actions. You are that person, rather than having your voice heard through a third party. You're making the voice heard from yourself. So keep that in mind. The town meeting is to the town what the legislator is to the state, or the Congress is to the United States. The town meeting hall has all the basic power. There is no higher authority in town. But in order to have the right to participate, you must be registered voter of your town. You must attend. Okay. So again, 66% was the best showing that we've seen in years, and we're still failing if it's a grade. Because that's the participation. Those people, 100% of registered voters were attending, voting, and having their voice heard. There's a lot more action that would be able to be taken place, rather than us considering that our government is taking over. We have no control. We've lost the power. We've lost the power because we've given up. We accept that we've lost the power, instead of taking action and making legitimate strides to be involved and making that change. The moderator presides, and can do what it takes to maintain order. But again, you are the legislator. You are the one that is presenting ideas. The moderator is just maintaining order for the meeting to progress. Number 3, the voters can always overrule the moderator by a simple majority. Democracy in its greatest, majority rule. We come together, have a consensus. We vote against the moderator. Guess what? We can overrule the moderator, the one that is managing the order of the meeting. Number 4, there is no such thing as an illegal vote. Funny enough. What? You mean the town's lawyers are all wrong? No, I don't mean that. pay close attention. It is true that there are plenty of types of town votes which, if they pass, will not be legally binding, would not be enforceable in court. Okay, so you can pass a law that all the grapes have to be pink. They can't be purple or green anymore. They have to be pink. You can pass that law, but it doesn't mean it can be enforced. So that's what you have to, of course, bring to the table is legitimate items to be, something that can be binding, be used and officiated in a court of law. Number 5, it is okay to ask questions. You don't know what you don't know. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. So where you find ignorance, you seek knowledge. You ask those questions. That is what is important there. Number 6, no vote can be legally binding unless its subject matter was stated in the warrant. The warrant is sort of an agenda of the town meeting, which is posted 2 weeks in advance by the selectmen. In most towns, it's also printed in the town report, published before the annual town meeting. The requirement that all subject matter be stated in the warrant keeps the meeting orderly, prevents surprise, and lets voters who might otherwise stay home know that some topic of interest to them is coming up for discussion and possible action. In this case, you're often going to find, hey, proposal, this, that, and the other, number 1, 2, 3, is being addressed. It addresses alcohol in your town. It addresses, whatever the case may be. So you can go to the town hall meeting and say, I don't agree, or I do agree with this state, with this agenda. Oddly enough, when it comes to town hall meetings, those that are opposed usually have the voice in the town meeting. They go and go in force to oppose the rules, the rule that's being addressed. So if there's opposition that is meant to have or a policy that is meant to better the government, the community, if there's any kind of taxes involved, a lot of times people are like, I don't want any new taxes, especially if those taxes are going here instead of there. So the opposition often comes together. If you have positive influence on the matter, you're oftentimes not having the same representation, because you feel like, I don't really have to attend. It's fine, whatever the case may be. But that is often the case, that those that approve of what is being addressed often don't follow up in their meetings, in the town hall meetings, in the whatever meetings that are being gathered to address these things. Those things are often fallen by the wayside. So that's another reason to be involved and encourage involvement, because if it is good in the greater scheme of things to be passed, that it needs better representation of both sides versus just being one-sided in representation in the meetings. So 7, any 25 voters have the right to add articles to the warrant by petition of the selectmen 5 weeks in advance the annual town hall meeting. Again, this is New Hampshire. Your state might be different. So it's good to research what your state has to do. I would encourage you to go at least listen in on 1 or 2 town hall meetings before you actually start to make your voice heard there, just so you have an understanding of the flow of the nature of the meeting, understand what is being presented, how it's being presented, so that you have some experience when you're going to it. But again, you can ask questions, you have a right to voice. If it's been put on the orders that it's going to be addressed, you have that to be addressed as well. Number 8, ordinary everyday language is perfectly okay. You don't have to have all the high-tech governmental terms to be able to address what you're trying to address. This intersection is dangerous. This intersection, has high probability of accidents, whatever. You don't have to bring in political terms or any kind of educated terminology to be able to present something in these meetings. Normal citizen talk, everyday communication is perfectly okay to address anything within the town hall meeting in that case. Number 10, you can ask for a secret written ballot on any question, so you don't have to be noted who is making the request. You can request ballot or question by and then what's the word I'm looking for? Anonymously. So you don't have to be identified as making that request or question. You can be anonymous there. Okay. Virtually any town vote can later be reconsidered or rescinded. You've probably seen this or heard about things that a proposal gets passed and then it is rescinded. So there's continued discussion, after one meeting to the next meeting to the next meeting, until ultimately it's shot down or pulled back for whatever purpose. So again, involvement is key to seeing things through that you want to have addressed. Number 13 says a vote to go into debt must be passed by a 2/3 ballot vote. So there's the opportunity to, potentially take the city, town, even state into debt, but that has to be addressed and has to be approved by 2/3 vote. And then when they post the budget, they have to figure out how they're getting out of that debt, coming out of that debt. So, number 14, you can act on or amend particular line items on a budget. You can do that as well. Number 15, also address your school district meetings. I don't know if you know this or not, but the majority of your property tax is governed by your school district that you are in. So how much property tax really has to do with what your school district is doing. So it's important to attend your school district meetings as well. Because if you don't want your property tax to go up, you need to understand why they are proposing that it goes up. So that it has less to do with the city than it does the school district that you live in. So keep that in mind too. And then number 16 is democracy, use it or lose it. That is, we discussed this at length as, United States personnel, the people of the United States. Is democracy is what we have established to make sure that our vote is heard, that we are understood, and that what we want to see happen can or should happen. As a soldier, when I see people arguing against the government, I fought for that right for them to argue and defend their point of view, their perspective on things. And that is important. Democracy is important for us to be able to live as free people and establish, a good living environment for the rest of the world to see that it is a good way of life. I won't say better, but it is a good way of life to have the ability to speak our minds, to be heard and be appreciative, even if we are disagreed with. And other classes, you know, we've seen that this where we don't agree with whatever that case may be, but we still appreciate each other for their perspective, their point of view, and the lesson that they can still teach us. You know, and that's a freedom that we share as Americans, and you know, in plenty of other places, to be able to speak that mind. So that is the gist of what I'm trying to accomplish with the establishment of Jedi for the community, or Jedi for the Republic. That we represent the people. We are Jedi. We want to defend the people, the community, to the best of our ability. And there's areas that we can be more involved in that probably aren't what we would normally think of. You probably heard the title of this is, you know, the involvement in the community, but it's different than probably what you were expecting in like community work, service projects, and things like that. So we got to be involved with what is going on in our little communities, in our state, in our governments, to have our voice heard, encourage others to have their voice heard, even if it is different than ours, because of democracy. That they can have their voice heard just like we can have our voice heard, regardless of what the difference is. So that is important, that we can all have different voices, have it heard, take it to a vote, agree to disagree, and then do it all again, you know, over and over again until we come to, you know, some kind of a census. So any questions on any of that? Quiet. Did I get kicked off again?
No, you're
No, you're still
I was
here.
muted.
You're
I think that was really good. I think that especially here, and especially voting's coming up, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I just got my absentee ballot thing to sign off on. I think that is good reminders, because I kind of feel like with all the silliness that goes on the, you know, internet and social media and local media, that we tend to forget the real control that we actually have. So I appreciate
I would say that with social media, with press and things like that too, you attending town hall meetings on the city or state level, you have more knowledge of what is actually going on, because social media and press will be one-sided. They are presenting an agenda that they want to see happen, where you have the information because you were there in the meeting. You've got all the information that you can take in and digest yourself, and not just one side of the story.
That's why you always should do C-SPAN.
I agree.
You want to know what's actually being said on the floor, go to C-SPAN.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because C-SPAN, you can actually watch federal agencies in action. So and like I said, town hall meetings are open to the public. C-SPAN has a lot of open to the public meetings of Congress, of the House, so that we can see what's going on. And if we have if we need to make a voice, our voice heard, we have the right to petition our representative on the floor and make our voice heard. And part of that petition is,
he made the joke and then we lost him.
Gee, thanks, Peter.
Peter. Okay, well, while he's doing that, while I try to get his attention, I'm going to also weigh in here and just make a point of saying you have more power locally than you do federally.
Very true. Very true.
And
And there's
here, I'm
more
going to give you guys an example.
that needs to be
Say
done.
it.
There's more that, hey, there's more that needs to be done on a local level anyway than a federal.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
So, like, I'll give you guys an example. Is marijuana legal?
In some places, yes. Well, technically, it's
Nationally, not
decriminalized.
No,
federally.
it is not. It is still considered a Schedule I drug, and it is completely 100% against federal law.
Nope. Okay, listen. You guys aren't hearing me. Like, just give me, I'm trying to make a point here. It is 100% illegal. It is not even decriminalized. What your state has said is that they don't care about what the federal government has to say on the matter, and they're not going to enforce it.
Well, and
However,
here,
federally, if federally they want to, they can crack down on it.
actually, and I will say this for 100% fact, the state of Michigan has made it to where cities can vote for it. Here's the problem. Pontiac voted for it. The city that I live in, which is right next to
Audio
Pontiac,
going in and out.
it is illegal.
Is that just me?
So Pontiac, it's legal. Auburn Hills, it is not legal. So if you have marijuana in Pontiac and you drive on Updike and you pass the boundary into Auburn Hills, you will still go to jail because it is
Yeah.
not legal.
So this is my point, is that you have more power at the state and city levels, because even though the federal government can enforce it, clearly they're not, because it is too much of an effort to do that. So if you guys actually go to your local governments and you are able to convince the local atmosphere who is in control of the local police that have more power to enforce things, you get more liberties, because all it means is that they're going against what the federal government said, and the federal government does not have the ability to enforce it, which goes back to what Peter was talking about, is it enforceable? You can say pink grapes all day long, but it's not enforceable. So
Well,
if the local government says that they don't want to enforce it, then federal government can try all they want, but they're going to have a real headache. So I use the marijuana laws, whether you agree with them or not, to demonstrate how important it is that you talk with your local government, because your local government has so much more power than federal. Everybody
Yes.
focuses on who the president is. I promise you, you have more power locally.
Yeah.
Sorry, Peter, you were like
No,
gone, so I decided I was
got-
going to say some stuff.
I think my phone is overheating is the problem, I guess. So I've got the air blowing on it now. So so it might be a little distorted in my voice. I wanted to point out on that as well, that the judicial government, the federal courts, don't hear anything that hasn't already been heard at a local level. They are essentially an appeals court to see whether or not that includes things that become unconstitutional. So if the federal government passes a law that really is not constitutional, then it gets challenged usually at a state level first, and then goes to the higher judicial system for confirmation whether it is in fact constitutional or offends the constitutional rights of the people. And if it offends the constitutional rights of the people, it gets changed as law because it can no longer be enforced. So that's a lot of things that happens quite frequently, actually, more often than we actually realize. That's where that change happens, is we challenge it at a state level. It goes to the higher echelon of the federal government, and then they agree that it is not constitutional, and that gets changed all the way down to the city level.
So here's a conspiracy theory. Are you ready? The
Yay,
reason why that the federal government does not want to legalize marijuana on a federal level is because a little over 2/3 of those people in prison are in there for marijuana related charges. If the federal government was to make marijuana legal, then those people have the right to get out of jail, which means that they no longer get their funding.
That is a conspiracy theory, but I wouldn't be surprised.
No, it's not really. So in my substance
Just
abuse
to get challenged.
therapy, or my substance abuse classes, that was one of the things that they talked about, is because most of the non-violent crimes in America are non-related. So if they make it legal, these people have a right to appeal their sentences, and then they lose over 70% of their funding, which would be
They can
very
start-
bad.
They can start shutting down these prisons and jails and
All right, there's my
Yep.
conspiracy here.
And there's, and again, if you attend meetings and get the information firsthand, this conspiracy theory you can throw out the window, or you can fully agree with, because you have that information in you know, from the source. You're not listening from an alternative source.
You're not listening. Yeah, you can directly ask those kinds of questions, like why are you not doing this? What are your real arguments? And then you can also ask, is your argument in line with, we have a problem with detention facilities and they would lose funding? Then if that is part of the problem, we need to figure out what we can do and shift their jobs. So we would have to allocate money towards helping them get new jobs or something. Like you have to generate ideas. You can't just bring up problems. You have to also come up with solutions. And
Don't
sometimes
get me
those solutions require you to go into nonprofit organizations or finding out what close nonprofit organizations exist. Now that said, sometimes you have little small towns that don't want to grow up. And okay, actually they have recently grown up. They stopped living completely in the past. But when I was living there, they had problems where they were like, we want this place to be a mill town, but we have problems with all of these drugs and whatnot. So I proposed the idea, why don't we help the local population by becoming a town that is more aimed at helping those people, like building clinics and whatnot in the area. So we become more nurse oriented and whatnot. And their whole problem was, well, that would just attract more people to the area that are like that, and then we'd have more problems because they couldn't see beyond that. Yeah, don't get me started on the prison.
And that's a valid point. And again, would require more discussion, but it's not necessarily going to be the case. And that's why there's further discussion that's required there to kind of mediate what is the best course of action for the city town, you know, extend it out of the area, you know. But if you're offering an opportunity for those kinds of people, and you know, that's a very disgusting term in my opinion, those kinds of people, but if you're offering an opportunity for them to better themselves through the program, then yes, you might attract more of those people coming in, but you'll influence better people coming out.
Right. No, you're not wrong. And that was the argument I tried to make. But then, like, when that wasn't going to be a thing, I tried to ask if the churches would be. So, like, I'm just giving you guys an example of an extreme circumstance that unfortunately probably is the norm for smaller towns. And that was like when I made the argument, then when they shot that down, I said, well, what about the local churches? Do they want to help? And then all of them in the council said, no, the churches don't want to help. Well, you know what happened when I went to go talk with the churches? They wanted to help. and they wanted to work together in order to do anything. That said, I didn't have the ability to invest time in doing anything with it. But if I had, I can't be everyone's everyone. It's just not a thing, and nobody here can be everyone's everyone. So when you find a specific thing that you want to dive into and pour all of your efforts into, if that is what the force is calling you to, dive in, take that calling. But don't think that you can do everything. Do what you can.
And that's where you encourage involvement as well. By getting more people involved, then you don't have to necessarily do everything. Somebody also has that idea and that help that's helping you promote that idea. And you're not just doing it by yourself.
Right.
Obviously there is more power in more people. One voice can only go so far. So
yeah.
So
it's just, and if
try
that's what
harder.
you're called to, right, and if that's what you're called to, if that's what the adventure that the force is, that you're being called to by the force or God or whatever it is, things will line up. Things will line up for you to make that happen. But your voice, having your voice in there, at least gives opportunity for things to surface. So don't be discouraged by walking in and finding that you're going to have a lot of push. And who knows, maybe you'll be able to get, like, especially on the town halls level, if you're keeping on going, you're going to find the people that want to run for town hall, that want that hear you too. And then you can get them to help you get up the funding later if that's something that you want to, like, but you got to get involved first. And trust me, I know it's hard to do that, especially like I have a kid. I can't go to town hall easily because of the age. I can't just drag him into a town hall meeting when I have no one to watch him.
Yes, you
But
can.
when I'm older, no, I can't. I tried that.
I couldn't
It
help
was not a good
myself.
thing. I say it because I did try it. Kai is not the kind of kid you want to take into a room. I love him to death, but he's not the kind of person you want to take into a room like that. But yeah, it's so, recognize where you're not able to do things. And if you can't get into those meetings, at the very least, engage in knowing who your candidates are.
Yeah,
and who you can vote for local council.
That's a very important comment there too, is knowing who you're voting for. Our government is basically a bipartisan, but it truly is not. We've given power to two parties to run for government. Everyone else is a wasted vote. And
you know why they're a wasted vote?
Well, they're not
legitimately.
A wasted vote,
you know why?
But
it's because we keep promoting that they're a wasted vote.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I use the quotations there, that wasted vote. No, if you're voting for who you feel is the right person for the job, it is not a wasted vote, whether or not they have a shot at actually taking that office. The more we promote that we are looking for the right person for the job, not a party member, that's where we're going to get some progress in how the government is actually run.
Mm-hmm. Rosalind's got something.
I was gonna say those quote unquote wasted vote people. Those are the ideas that can actually come down to the local level and the more roots places, where if we really wanted to see change, we can't do it from the top down. We have to do it from the bottom up.
Yep.
Yes.
Very, very much so. It really does start at the bottom, and there is a bit of a climb, but you're not making that climb. Your voice is being heard at the lower level, and the voice is making the climb through the proper channels. So you just have to keep promoting what you feel is proper in whatever situation you're addressing.
Yep.
Anyone else?
The revolution started with just the common folks, and look what that turned into. And not to quote what you call it, but remember, rebellions are built on hope.
That is very true. One
New
thing
hopes.
that kind of scares me with the idea that is being pushed around and is really a conspiracy theory, but is feeding into the fear of people, is that we are facing a legitimate new civil war. And the reason that we would be facing that is because we are not involved. We, the people, get involved, then there should be no qualms about what is being pushed into law, what is being enforced, and how we are able to live our lives. If we allow government to overthrow us, yes, we're likely going to find ourselves in a civil war. But the only way that happens is if we are not involved.